Welcome back to the show. Today we have Kashani. She's known as the Godmother of Silicon Beach and the co-founder and CEO of COACCEL. Cam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to have you on the show. You've done a crazy amount of stuff and you continue to do a crazy amount of stuff. But maybe before we get into all that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Yeah, I was born in Iran, actually,
Very cool.
and moved when I was one. We basically ran
Okay.
away from the war. It was
Fair
during the
enough.
height of the war when I was born, and so we moved here. And I've been in LA since I was 6 years old. But initially, I was on the East Coast for a few years.
Okay. Very cool. So you went to university. What did you take and why?
Well, I went to undergrad and grad school, and
Okay.
for both of them, I majored in entrepreneurship and marketing.
Okay.
The why, well, to be honest, for undergrad,
Yeah.
I was really intrigued by the world of marketing. I always really appreciated psychology, which actually makes a lot of sense now that I'm a coach.
Sure.
Um, and so I just felt like it came easy to me. And entrepreneurship, because there was a part of me, even though back then I honestly didn't really believe in myself, but there was a part of me that knew that I couldn't work for anybody.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
What made you get that feeling? Was there like a defining moment or moments in your life or what made you feel like that?
There wasn't necessarily a defining moment, but it was like a knowing.
Okay.
It's not something I can be like, well, this happened, and
Okay.
therefore I was like, so I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It was it was a deeper knowing within me. Like I knew it, and I didn't know when, I didn't know how, but I
Okay.
just knew.
Okay. So you get out of university. Walk me through your career because you ended up going back to school, but you've done a ton of
Hmm.
stuff. So walk us through your journey. Maybe cover some career highlights and some failures along the way up until what you're doing today.
All right, you got some time?
Yeah, I love it. Let's go.
All right. Well, after college, I ended up getting the one and only real job that I ever had,
Okay, sure.
where I was a director of marketing for a medical diagnostics corporation.
Okay.
And I was there for 4 years. And I did help them significantly during the 4 years I was there. I brought in what I call a human element into the equation. When I got there, everything was operating at a very robotic level. There was a lot of negativity in the office. There was a lot of people talking behind one another's backs, and people were just unhappy. Morale was low. And I knew myself, even though I was only 22 or 23, I knew that if I was going to be in that environment, my soul would die.
Sure.
So I
Fair
ended up
enough.
having a conversation with the CEO of the company, and I told him, I think that people don't realize why they're here. They're not
Interesting.
realizing that they're in the business of patient care. They think they're just here for, a paycheck or whatever might be going through their minds. And he was actually really receptive to the conversation, ended up holding a meeting and asking the 60 something employees in the office, like, why do you guys think you're here? And nobody could answer the question. And everyone did say, oh, because we have to hit a certain number of studies every month, because I have to pay my rent, like all of these generic responses. And so in that moment, I was able to help them implement this other kind of way of being within the company. And it ended up really making a big difference. Over 4 years, we went from 3 locations to nine,
Wow.
and increasing profits 60%.
Well,
And
that's
they ended
good.
up getting acquired. Yeah,
Very
they
cool.
ended up getting acquired 2 years after I left. So, but the reason I left was because I craved that autonomy. So
Right.
this is when that moment hit me, like I need to not work for somebody else anymore.
Okay.
And I had a great idea too. It was a document delivery portal between physicians and service providers to communicate through the cloud in a HIPAA compliant fashion. So in layman's terms, it's basically electronic medical records before they existed, but only
Interesting.
focusing on the back end, like between the physician and the service provider.
Got you.
So it was a good idea, but way ahead of its time, and I had no idea what I was doing.
Happens. Happens. Yeah, fair enough.
Yes, it does. It does. And it was during the Great Recession. This was in 2008. So
Okay.
it was bad timing and, lack of resources and lack of know-how. And so that ended up becoming a huge failure. And it was 2 years of our time, $200,000 of our own money. I mean, I didn't even know what an investor was. I was so clueless about everything. And we ended up with only 3 customers.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
no, but okay, keep going on your journey. So what did
Okay.
you do after that?
So that was the moment where this is towards the end of 2009 now, and still in the economic recession, still a bad time in the economy. This is when I am getting my MBA now. So I'm in graduate school.
Okay.
And I'm looking for a job because this startup we had just completely tanked, and I couldn't find anything. There was nothing. It was literally like the one thing I could find was secretarial jobs. They were making like 30 grand a year. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm getting my MBA. This just doesn't make sense. That's not what I'm going to do.
Sure.
And so in that moment of scarcity spawned creativity. And that's where the idea for the next company came along, which was called Coloft.
Okay.
And Coloft was the first co-working space in Los Angeles.
Wow. You were very early on in the co-op space, or the co-working space. Sorry.
The co-working space.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was before WeWork. This
Yeah.
was before any of these guys existed. It was such a new thing.
So how did you come up with the idea, though?
Well, it was a combination of things, and most of all, as most entrepreneurs say, it was out of need.
Okay.
So the first startup having failed the way that it did, I believe that a huge reason we failed so hard was a lack of community and lack of resources. And when I say resources, I don't just mean money. I mean like all the possible resources, advisors, and all of these different things that you need to have in order to build a successful company. So the premise behind the thought was, why isn't there a place for people like us? An AA for entrepreneurs, so to say. We're a different breed.
Yes, we are.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
they're going to be.
We're just different.
There's a startup idea. Hey, we meet every Thursday.
Like, hi, I'm Cam. I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I failed these many times doing these things. I wish I knew. Yeah. Can anybody help me with these 10 things?
I'm addicted to the high.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Wow, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. So that was where the concept kind of came to mind. And so what we decided to do was do the lean startup before the lean startup was a thing. There was no book called The Lean Startup yet, but we failed. From our previous failure, we learned how to build quickly and efficiently and make sure that there's validation and all of that. So we put up a website before Coloft existed, Coloft coming spring of 2010 when it wasn't. And I had no ties to the community down here. There was literally no technology scene in Los Angeles. And now we're like number 3 in the world in terms of startup growth. It's crazy. But back then there was literally just one event every 2 months with the same 90 people. And I was not involved in that circle at all. So I just hustled and sent it to all my friends and family, like, hey guys, send this to as many people as you possibly can. Let them know we're opening. And we ended up actually getting about 250 emails in a very short amount of time. Yeah. So that was one positive step. And with those emails, we decided to survey them.
Okay.
And from those surveys, one of the biggest questions that we asked was, if Coloft was open today, would you become a member and would you pay X amount? And we got about 28% of people that said yes.
Very cool.
And so that's the moment that we decided to take the plunge. And so concept to creation took 3 months. We launched Coloft early 2010. Within 4 months, we break even, and it ended up becoming the ground zero for LA tech as we know it. It ended up becoming like such a big staple in history. It's crazy. It started a movement. And
That's amazing,
We
though.
had, I know, it's so cool. Totally not intentional, but awesome how it works out that way, right?
Sure. So I'm
Um,
curious though, did you guys how did you have the money to actually rent space early on, or did you leverage some of the money from people that were willing to pay, or how did that kind of come to be?
well, we had some money from before. We had a small amount of money left, and I borrowed some from family.
Okay. Okay. No, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So that's basically what it came down to, and it was one of those, please, please believe in us.
Yeah, we just
This
we
can
just had
work,
this
I
failure
swear.
company, but give us more money. I love that. No, that's great though. But I think that's like the point I'm trying to make here is you're known as the godmother of Silicon Beach because you didn't give up on this, right? Walk us
Yeah.
through that journey and how you became known as the godmother of Silicon Beach.
Well, that name came from Coloft. So Coloft ended up having over 1,800 alumni during the 4 years that I was
Wow.
there. And those alumni included Uber LA, Instacart, ZipRecruiter, the early Tinder team. It was really like, even Pando Daily did this article and they called it the cheers of the LA tech ecosystem.
Very cool.
It was the place to be. And people just started calling me that. And at first I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And then I was like,
Really?
actually, this is kind of cool.
Well, so what was it, just uncomfortable or what? Well, how come you didn't really like it early on?
I don't know. I think I was a little bit timid back then. I'm not anymore. I can give a now, but
Well, at least you're honest.
this is true.
No, that's good though. Okay. So is Coloft, for people that haven't heard of it, still around or what?
No, so this is the interesting part of the story. So Coloft is no longer around,
Okay.
and there's a few reasons for that. But the biggest one being, so my co-founder throughout this story was my ex-husband.
Got you.
And so when I filed for divorce, it just erupted this big thing. And so I ended up losing Coloft in my divorce. And it was a very difficult moment for me, and one I speak about very openly because I think it's really important for people to understand the power of perseverance and resilience and not allowing failures and losses to define you.
Sure.
Because this was a moment where I literally went from like, oh my God, I love my company and this is great and everything's good. And, a week later, I'm no longer who I had identified myself as. I was that guy's wife for 12 years. I was Coloft Tam, and all of that was gone. And it was this moment where I'm like naked in the universe with twin boys. They were barely 1.5.
Wow.
As a mom. And I just felt so scared. I didn't know what to do.
Sure.
I felt really scared, and I had a total identity crisis. And it ended up becoming the best possible thing that could have happened to me, because that moment catapulted me on my awakening and me just building myself up, learning who I truly am at the core, not allowing anything outside of me to define me. I define all of it. Like, a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, develop such severe attachments to their product that they think that without the product, they are nobody, when in reality, you are the product.
Interesting.
And you are an infinite possibility.
That's really good
And
advice.
so, yeah. And the more powerful and equipped you are as a human being, the more successful you will be as a natural result. So my advice to entrepreneurs is always to build yourself and equip yourself. You're the product. And that's what I did. I was forced into it in a way, but like, it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened. And I started doing a lot of self-development, personal development, and different books and seminars. I met the woman who is now my business partner, and she was my coach during that period of time.
Okay, so how did you guys meet? Just out of curiosity. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all. It was through a family friend. It was super random.
Okay.
Just like,
it seems to always be kind of random.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I really thought nothing of it. A family friend was like, "Here, you should call this woman. She's incredible." And I'm thinking, like, I really have nothing to lose right now, because I connected with her probably like a week before I filed for divorce, and it was just a
Wow.
really dark time. And she had come so highly regarded, and she's this incredible intuitive coach. And I was like, okay, well, let me give it a shot. And that first phone call with her just changed my life in so many ways.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I'm so grateful for her. Like, she was a big guiding light during that entire part of my life, and she helped build me back up at such an accelerated speed that I literally went from being depressed in my bed to 9 months later, I'm working with the State Department. I'm in Kuwait,
Wow.
sitting across from the U.S. ambassador and like telling him what to do. It was
Oh,
it
okay.
was so surreal.
Okay, well, let's step back for a second. So, how did that come to be, and what did you do for the State Department?
So that was an interesting story. I literally got a phone call one day from this woman telling me that she's calling on behalf of the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait and the U.S. State Department. And I'm like, did I do something? Like, what is going on? Why are you guys calling me? And she's like, I got your name from quite a few different people, and we have this incredible program here that's proven to ward off terrorism by building entrepreneurial ecosystems overseas and empowering the women and the youth to build entrepreneurial projects. We'd
Wow.
like to invite you to be a speaker down here. Yeah.
That must have been really amazing, actually.
You have no idea. It was a life-changing moment for me. That trip was definitely a trip of a freaking lifetime.
Sure. No, fair enough. So you go over there. What types of stuff did you talk about?
Various things depending on the venue I was at. So
Okay.
they had me do television segments,
Wow.
radio segments. I spoke at the universities. I was the guest of honor at the U.S. ambassador's home,
Wow.
where he had like a roundtable lunch, and I was able to offer advice to major decision makers in Kuwait, which was incredible.
Sure.
Yeah, so it was a myriad of things, from helping them to build the ecosystem and different types of things I learned with Coloft in regard to building community, to individual empowerment when I sat one-on-one with the Kuwaitis over there and I was giving them advice in terms of becoming an entrepreneur.
Very cool. Okay, walk me through what exactly is COACCEL and how did it come to be?
Yeah, so COACCEL is my third company now,
Okay.
and it came to be, and this is why I say Kuwait was such a powerful moment for me. In that moment in Kuwait, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, where was I just a year ago and where am I now? And mentally
Sure.
speaking, like,
Sure.
I had just come such an incredibly long way. And I realized that the only person holding me back in this entire journey of life has been myself.
Interesting.
And I really wanted to help other people get out of their own way and realize what they're truly capable of, because we can get so embedded in our minds, we don't even have an awareness as to what we are truly doing. And it ends up holding us back. We end up having, doing self-sabotage. We end up having imposter syndrome. We end up having so many different things that can show up. And just not living a happy life is what I see most frequently, especially amongst entrepreneurs. It's like, once I get my company here, I'll be happy. No, you'll never be happy. You're always going to be chasing a fucking dream. You got to be happy now if you want to truly find that fulfillment within yourself. And so that's kind of when the concept of COACCEL came into my mind. Like, the initial idea was, there's all these accelerators out there that are building product. Why aren't there any building people? And so it's called COACCEL, the Human Accelerator, for that reason. And what it is a 3-month program where it's one-on-one, highly customized, and it's the most powerful and innovative method of coaching out there, because it incorporates not just business coaching, which is what you predominantly see out there, but it's business coaching, transformational coaching, which is what really helps you identify and remove any types of limiting beliefs that you are not aware of and is not in your awareness. We help bring it to your awareness, and we help reprogram them. In addition to intuitive coaching and mindset coaching. So we're really bringing all components of coaching together into one powerful 3-month program. And we've been doing this now for almost 3 years, which is
Wow.
crazy.
That's great.
Yeah, it's been
Congrats.
almost 3 years. Thank you. And it's really going great. And me and my business partner, we're the two coaches. I'm the
Okay.
mindset transformational coach, and she's the intuitive transformational coach. And together, we just make a really great complementary team, and the stories that have come out have been phenomenal. We've really helped people transform their lives, build their businesses, scale their businesses. Whatever they want is what we help them achieve.
Got you. Very cool. So walk us through a bit of your process without maybe giving away kind of what you guys do, but talk us through how does it kind of work and how do you decide who you take on for 3 months? Because it's got to be a little bit challenging to pick people sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Coaching is a very intimate relationship, and I always warn people that if you have a coach who's trying to sell you, run.
Interesting.
Yeah, you don't want that. You want a coach who's really going to take the time up front to understand you and your needs, and to see if there's a fit, if there's alignment.
Right.
There should be no selling involved. It should be a natural process. So what we do, we work by invite and referral only.
Okay.
And so what happens is, initially, if there's somebody who gets referred, for example, I set up a time to meet with them, have a conversation with them, and really get to understand their world and what they're doing. And in that conversation, whether they're aware of it or not, I'm coaching them. And so I'm able to tell, is this person coachable? Number one, is there a fit here in terms of my coaching and the way they are? Because sometimes there just isn't. And that's okay. I'm just not the right coach for that person.
Sure.
And, assuming there's a fit, then we both want to move forward, then we start off with a assessment.
Okay.
And really get at a deeper level, like what is it that they want to accomplish or gain for themselves over the next 3 months, and learn about their fears, their weaknesses, strengths, all of that stuff. And we take it from there.
Very cool. So I'm
Yeah.
curious though, what types of stuff do you guys find the most beneficial, or stuff that you see all the time that you really have to help people through? You kind of mentioned at the beginning, but I think it's really important to cover that.
Well, what the common patterns that come out are most related to a sense of I'm not worthy or I don't deserve it.
Okay.
And it's running at such a deep level that they're just not even aware of it. Because if you ask the person, do you believe you deserve it? They'll go, yeah, of course.
Sure.
But then as you do more work with them, they're like, oh, wait, no, maybe you're right, because I am sabotaging myself here, and I am experiencing imposter syndrome there. Right? These two are like the side effects of the core problem, which is the story, I like to call it, because it's not real. The story of I'm not worthy and I don't deserve it, which is just something deeply embedded in a lot of different humans, and it comes from various experiences throughout their life. So I can identify that really quickly just because I've been doing this for a very long time.
Sure.
And I bring it up to them in a gentle / in your face way.
Sure. Okay. Okay.
So they're not completely thrown off, but they're also like, I'm honest. I'm going to tell them, like, this is actually what's going on. And they go and they have that moment. And I'm like, so you have a choice right now. You either get to keep operating that way, or we get to do the work to fix it and reprogram it and make you really experience life the way you were meant to experience life.
No,
and when that awareness usually comes into their consciousness, they're like, they don't want to do that anymore. Like, why live life that way, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So I mean, that would probably be the most common thing that shows up, and it's common in men and in women.
Sure. I could see that for sure. So I'm curious
Hmm.
though, you mentioned something that's interesting. The self-sabotage thing. It seems to
Hmm.
me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that it's almost like the busier you are and the more things you need to do, it's almost like you're not even juggling the balls anymore. You've dropped all the balls and you need to figure out which ones to pick back up. But you don't even know where to begin or which balls to start picking back up. Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
That happens. That's definitely one component of things. And on the same note, like, they're doing that to keep themselves busy from addressing the real problem, which is themselves.
Interesting.
They
So
want to, yeah, they want to stay busy and like keep their mind busy so as not to look within, because it's not easy to look within. It takes a lot of courage.
sure. So how do you get people to let you guys in? Because that's got to be, sometimes they don't even tell their closest family members or friends some of the stuff that you guys probably hear from people.
Absolutely. And that's why the work we do is highly confidential.
Yeah, fair enough.
Nobody will ever know any of it. Yeah. But, to be honest with you, they have to be ready.
Okay.
Right. So if I have somebody sitting in my office that I'm talking to who just doesn't want to share anything, I just tell them, you know what, you're just not ready for this. This isn't for you. When you want to authentically share and tell me what your deepest dreams are, what your darkest secrets are, like what are all those things that have led you to where you are now, that's when you're ready. When you're really done with life being as it is and you're ready to take it to the next level and you're willing to do anything to make that happen, that's when you're ready. So it takes a certain place for a person to get to. Like, had I not been in the position that I was in, I don't know how receptive I would have been to coaching. And that doesn't mean you have to be experiencing a crisis to be ready for coaching. In fact, I highly encourage people to get coaching way before any type of crisis shows up so that you're able to have the tools to respond to a crisis potentially. Um, but you do have to just be in a headspace of, I surrender to the universe and I realize that I don't know everything and I need help and I want to take myself to another level and experience the beauty that life has to offer.
Sure. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. You keep talking about working with people, but I'm curious to dive a little bit deeper into, are the outcomes that people come to you guys with always different, or do people come with certain outcomes, or how does that kind of work?
It varies.
Okay.
It depends. Like, initially, for example, we were only working with entrepreneurs, and now we've expanded beyond that. It's really anybody who's ready to take their life to the next level. But in the beginning, when it was just entrepreneurs, and with the entrepreneurs we do work with, a big part of it is launching my company, raising money,
Okay.
scaling my company, handling employees, becoming a better leader. Like, those are things that have shown up a lot.
Okay.
And in addition to that, on the inner work side, what has been very common is I want to release the doubts and the fears that I have, because the amount of self-doubt that's out there is astonishing. People really experience such a high level of self-doubt, and founders, leaders, they are no exception to this. So we really help them identify at a deeper level with the truth of who they are, help them build trust with themselves, help them love themselves, help them accept themselves, and release the doubts and the fears that are showing up.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think the trick is, and what do you see as the common rationale behind some of that? Because you're right. I know lots of people that are astronomically successful, and
Mm-hmm.
probably more successful than most people will ever be, and they still feel like they have no idea what they're doing. They're a fraud, that they're going to get found out, and they've maybe sold 3 companies and they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and they still feel the same emotions that people that just started their business yesterday feel, right? So how do
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
work with people to actually overcome that? Because I think that's something that I see a lot of time talking to people, even on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to be honest, it's a very individual thing.
Okay.
It requires us to sit with them and understand their story, what they've gone through in their life, what
Okay.
experiences have led up to where they are. This usually has a lot to do with parents. It
Okay.
has a lot to do with various, mentors and whatnot while you're growing up. It could just be one or two defining experiences where you just felt like, it resulted in you making this decision. So what happens with a human being is when you experience something as a child or as a grown up, you make certain decisions based on that experience. So for example, I'll just use myself. When my
Sure.
brother was born at the age of 4,
Okay.
I decided that meant that I wasn't enough.
Okay.
That's
Interesting.
not true.
Sure. Sure.
Right? It's
Yeah.
not true at all. But this is what happens. This is what people do. There are these small things that show up that are small when you look at it from a bird's eye view. But in the world of a 4-year-old, why is there another fucking human here? Was I not enough for you guys? And
Yeah.
so I ended
Interesting.
up having that story for a very long time until I did the work. And a lot of women in particular have this story of I'm not enough. So that's a big one that we work with for sure. But that's kind of what I mean when I say we make certain decisions based on certain experiences. And you don't have to be a child for that to happen. If an entrepreneur fails at their product for the first time,
Yeah.
they could make the decision that I am a failure, right? But
Yeah.
that's not true.
No, fair enough. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of how the evolution of the thought process shows up. And so we have to do the work to really dissect and see what's going on and help them reframe it all.
Makes a lot of sense. So when you guys are working with people, do you do in-person stuff? Do you do video chat, a bit
Hmm.
of both? Do they have to be located
Yeah.
in your guys' area, or how does that kind of work?
No, we have clients globally. So it's a mix of all of the above. If they're around and in the area, and I'm in Santa Monica,
Sure.
we'd love to do it in person. If they aren't, video chat, phone call, technology is a great help in this.
Yeah, sure. Makes sense. So
Hmm.
I'm curious, where do you guys kind of take this from here? Are you guys just planning to keep doing what you're doing? Do you have expansion plans? Are you going to move into other things as well? Or what's the future hold for you guys?
We have a lot of fun thoughts, and there's definitely a direction and a vision in which we're going. And I want this to be a big thing. This is not going to be a small coaching business. This is going to be a big global company. And I'm also taking my time in regard to that happening. I've learned that when you push anything, it just doesn't work. You need to trust in the divine timing of the process. And so as long as I'm showing up every day and doing my thing, I know that the bigger pieces are coming into play as well, and the right things show up at the right time. There's this beautiful synchronicity happens
Okay.
that happens when you're in alignment. And so, yes, there is plans for it becoming awesome and big.
Okay, sure.
And I don't want to really go into the details of
Sure.
what that looks like yet.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll happen.
So I'm curious though, how do you just accept that and trust that things will work out? Because I think that's really scary for some people to accept, but obviously you've accepted it.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful question you asked, because that shows you what is possible when you truly trust yourself. When you've done enough work and you get to a place, and when I say work, I mean inner work on
Okay.
yourself, the work on yourself, the personal development work, you get to a place where you finally trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, you trust the process and you trust the universe, because everything is a projection. Everything is a projection. So if I'm experiencing any trust out there,
Okay.
it means that I'm experiencing mistrust in here. Outer experience is a reflection of inner reality.
Interesting.
So for somebody, yeah, that's a really powerful statement.
Yeah.
And if people really, really understood the depth of that, they would get, so much of why certain things keep occurring, certain failures keep happening, or certain, situations keep repeating themselves. When you see that happening, you got to turn inside and see, well, what's missing in here. So It really just comes down to you believing in yourself at an unwavering level, you loving yourself at an unwavering level, you trusting yourself and your abilities and knowing that you will take the right steps at the right time. And as a result, everything just shows up. It doesn't have to be so hard. It can have a form of effortlessness involved.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice, because I think it's hard because a lot of people don't have close family and friends that are entrepreneurs or running their own business that they can have honest conversations with about the highs and lows and what they're struggling with. Because it seems to me anyway that even in my immediate friend group, that most people aren't willing to talk about when they're going through a hard time. It's always trying to put on, things are great, everything's awesome, we're growing like crazy, right? And just being able
Mm-hmm.
to kind of let your guard down and even have honest conversations with your friends and family. I've seen it because you can kind of tell, right? Like, and I'm sure you could see this. You can tell that somebody's struggling with something, but they put on a face that they're not, right?
Yeah.
And it's always
Yeah.
quite fascinating where you don't even necessarily have to pry, but you can get sometimes somebody on one-on-one and they just like dump it on you, and you can kind
Mm-hmm.
of help them through it, but they would never say that in front of maybe a handful of other people around, but maybe it's just like one-on-one, right? And that always kind of fascinated me, why people won't talk about the good and bad of what they're going through. And you guys must deal with that all the time. And so how do
Yeah.
you work with people to get them to open up a bit more, not only to you guys, but to the people around them, so they can actually potentially help them? Because these big companies or even small companies, they won't even tell their co-founders sometimes they're struggling with stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, you bring up a very good point. There's a few sides to this. Initially, what comes forward for me is it's really important to acknowledge that we live in a society where it's frowned upon
Yeah,
to be
interesting.
human.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of putting
You
it,
know,
right? Yeah.
seriously, like we're all human. We all experience ups and downs. We all experience wins and losses. We all have emotions and feelings. Why is this bad?
Yeah.
Why can't people just be themselves? And so I think it's really important, which is why I speak so openly about failure. It's like, dude, life sucks sometimes for
Mm-hmm.
everybody. Even the ones that look like they're crushing it on a daily basis, they're not. It's just, we have this social media shit out there that makes it look like, oh,
Yeah.
look at me, I'm on a private plane and I'm doing this and I just raised $80 million. And yeah, but I'm dying inside. I'm popping Adderall every fucking day. My heart rate is 1,000. I'm
Yeah.
slowly killing myself. Like there's such a discrepancy out there that's happening. It's ridiculous. And I think it's just important to bring attention to that. Like when you are feeling alone, when you are feeling upset, when you are feeling like things aren't working, talk to somebody. You will be surprised at how much people are willing to actually be there for you and help you. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Vulnerability is power. It doesn't mean that you are weak. That's one thing I really want people to walk away with, is just be human. It's okay. It's okay. We're trained as children, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, but that's so wrong, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to let those emotions come up. The goal is not to be happy all the time. The goal is to be okay with whatever shows up within you.
That's
So I just want to put that out there. And as far as people experiencing these things, like in a one-on-one setting, when I'm sitting with them, the energy by itself that's created. I always make a joke that I'm like one of those people that even if I'm sitting in like an Uber, the guy starts telling me his life story. It's just the way that I've always been, like
that's
in
awesome
that
though.
energy all of a sudden. Yeah, it's great. I'm grateful for that ability, but people just open up to me and I do create that safe space, that safe environment. I always am willing to share my own faults and my own journey, my own failures, for them to realize like, hi, I'm not invincible here. I'm also a human that goes through shit. Also, it's not like you're alone. So really helping them feel that way so that they're able to open up at a deeper level and share what needs to be shared. So on the one-on-one, that's what happens. In terms of them opening up to those around them, that really is not something I ever force.
Okay.
It's something people have to be prepared and ready for. And as you do this kind of work, and as you do become more comfortable in your skin, and you become more, more trusting of yourself, loving of yourself, you're okay with all parts of you, and you're okay with anything that shows up. And you don't see a need to pretend anymore, because you're no longer judging yourself. And again, going back to everything being a projection, any type of fear of judgment from others is a judgment of yourself. So when you do the work to dissolve the judgments within yourself, you're not going to even what anyone else thinks, because you're not judging yourself anymore.
It's actually really good advice. It's interesting, right? I that's the thing. Like, one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on the show is because you're brutally honest about this stuff, right? And you're right. Like, it's so fascinating to me, and just I want to reiterate it because I think it's so important. Is you have these people that you think are super successful, but they like can't sleep. They wake up in the middle of the night. They might be like drinking more or taking some sort of prescription meds just to cope with everything. But in everybody else's eyes, they're crazy successful, but they feel like they're drowning, right? In whatever that is.
Right.
And it's okay to feel like that. And failure doesn't have to be such a negative term, right? Like, you can learn more from either watching the company you work for fail, or you fail, or both. But it's the people that kind of pick themselves back up, figure it out, and keep going and work through this stuff, right? Or what advice do you kind of give people? Because we're kind of coming to the end of the show.
Sure. It's resilience and persistence more than anything else. Self-awareness is number one.
Okay.
Like, really, you want to get to a place where you know yourself. How many people are operating at such an unconscious level in life, and they don't even really know themselves? They don't know to what extent they feel inspired and what their purpose is and all that. So do the work to get to know who you are at an unwavering level. And resilience and persistence are the two other things. Like, you have to understand that things don't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Everything is a process. Everything is a process, right? It takes time. There are no overnight success stories. These are just the things that are glorified in the media and, again, social media, right? So just understanding that it takes time, it takes work, putting aside that sense of urgency, putting aside that sense of it has to show up now. That's just going to result in you chasing something, and whatever you chase chases you. So take the power back. Don't be attached to something outside of you and depend on that to give you the power. The power comes from within you. When you experience that, everything else falls into place. And being resilient, there's this really great Chinese proverb, fall 7 times, stand up 8. That is what it takes to be, if we're just talking about entrepreneurs in specific, to be a successful entrepreneur. But even as a human being, to be a happy and fulfilled human being, you're going to get hit in the face a million times in life.
Yep.
Are you going to allow it to keep you down? Are you going to allow situations to make you into a victim? Or are you going to look at it and go, yeah, that happened. I took my power back. I take responsibility. I take accountability. And I'm going to continue to show up. I'm not going to let that one experience define me. I am defining it. And come back from an empowered stance and start taking one step at a time, pushing forward and seeing the results show up in your face over time. There's no reason to allow failure to take you down. There's no reason to allow external circumstances to dictate who you are. The truth is, you are a divine being having a human experience, and you are here to be able to live a fulfilling life. So take that responsibility for yourself. It is absolutely your responsibility to make your life one that is powerful and fulfilled for yourself. It's nobody else, and it's nobody else's fault. So do the fucking work and enjoy this beautiful life.
No, I think that's actually really good advice, and I love the brutal honesty with that, right? But we are coming to the end of the show, so let's close with mentioning where people can get more information about you and COACCEL.
Yeah, totally. So you can find me actively on Instagram at Cam S. Kashani, and my website is coaccel.com. That's COACCEL. And if anybody's interested in learning more about what we do, you can schedule a meeting with me on the website, and we can talk more about what you're doing and see if there's a fit.
Perfect, Cam. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time in your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.